Lately, I've really just been following lines and walking and trying to understand how to photograph the landscape because I'm not typically one of these photographers that walks around with my camera. I give myself prompts just to keep working or change my way of seeing. And this prompt has to do with habit, rituals, the way that the body moves through the landscape, the memory that's created through walking and trying to sustain attention. I think it's really hard to photograph the landscape because it's so chaotic in a way, but it's teaching me how to see and how to isolate and also how to use the language of abstraction in my work. But it's been just really part of staying sane, I think, here in Berlin through the winter, but also through everything that we're dealing with right now. I just start here with my camera. I have a fellowship for 10 months in Berlin, which is such a gift. So I basically was like, well, I have this beautiful bathroom, but it kind of sucks because I still have to use it as a bathroom. So you'll see I have to kind of convert it every day. And maybe it's a dangerous thing to have it right here because I'm kind of working all the time. But the darkroom is a kind of performative space for me as well, and almost like dancing. So it's a very physical process for me, and it's one that I love. Because I think through materials. It may seem like my work is like I have this idea and then I go out and shoot it, but that is not actually how it works. I'm working, and then through the working, through the material, an idea comes out of that. I still need to burn a little bit more here, and I might want to open up the blacks just a tiny bit here, but I think it's getting there. I started shooting these in Los Angeles, and I was shooting them right as the ice raids started to kind of intensify around the city, and there were people taken from my own neighborhood. I was looking through this book, I was thinking about these warehouse structures and using my body as almost like a measuring device to sort of think about scale. And then as the ice raids were unfolding, I was also thinking about the ways that the warehouse itself is being used as detention centers. I was looking at images of women in particular being like pushed to the ground and dragged away. I started reenacting these poses. These are positions of violence acted against the body. But in my other bodies of work, I also explore the history of women's poses and how women have been represented throughout art history, photographic history, where I'm reenacting and channeling a kind of history through my body. I do think it also relates to my own history of, displacement and thinking about ancestral longing, a kind of inability to return. I'm an indigenous transracial adoptee, and it's so complex, I think, sort of figuring out, what it means to be orphaned. And then to go back to Peru so late in life and try to make sense of a history that's yours but not yours. And a lot of my work that has to do with Peru is also working with archives, touching the archive, trying to resurrect the archive, attempting to make physical the archive, and sort of inserting myself into these documents and making my positionality in relationship to the document present and visible. I'm always like performing, touching, resurrecting, putting myself into this history, attempting to go back to this moment. And I think that is part of this idea of being unable to, and the false kind of ideas about origins, trying to figure out belonging and family, blood, I don't know, like all these things that I think are so complex, right? There's a kind of figuring out what that means through the work.